Sundays, which is the title of my favorite John Updike book, next to, I guess, in The Passion of the Lily. But January now provides me with 4 Sundays to share my closing words as pastor to a congregation I love deeply and will miss very, very much. I want us to remember that we'll always be friends, and since we're going to be staying in the community, we'll still be neighbors. We hope we are treated as neighbors. But I just no longer will be able to be your pastor. Our relationship will shift. But you also have to know that God is already preparing that person who will come and be the pastor of this congregation. In preparation for these 4 Sundays, I asked myself, how do I build a bridge between the close of my ministry with you as teaching elder and the beginning of the next era in the 128 years of presence of this congregation into this community, bearing witness through the Presbyterian understanding of church and ministry and mission. What I have decided to do is to proclaim what I consider the fundamentals of being church. So yes, you can call Carl a fundamentalist now. That probably would be the first. But what are the 4 primary and essential and distinct characteristics of being partners in the covenant community of faith? To do so, I wanted to come up with something that might be memorable and helpful and easy to recite. And so I came up with the 4 C's. So each week we're going to do one of the C's. And the C's are called, commissioned, community, and communion. And also I want it to be a mantra, at least for these Sundays, of how we understand who we are and why we are here. I am called and commissioned by God for community and community. One sentence, can we try it? I am called and commissioned by God for community and community. Excellent. Try without me.
I am called and commissioned by God for community and community.
Okay, the sermon's over. No applause. Yes, in the first place we need to begin is to understand who we are and why we are here in this gathering. And that is to recognize that it is God who calls us to be church. This truth is found within the Greek word that is translated into English as church. It is ecclesia. You've probably heard the word ecclesiastical. Right? Well, the root of the word ecclesia is klesis, which is the Greek word for call. So in other words, if I was trying to reach and get your attention in the back of the sanctuary this morning, I would klesis you to attention. And hopefully if you've been sleeping, you're now awake. So that's what it means to be church. And why do I say we don't go to church? We are the church. Yes, we refer to this place, this building, the structures of our governance as church. But in reality, before we had buildings as a Christian community, it was only about people who had gathered together in faith. Those who were called by God to a new way of life together in the world. The church is made up of all the flesh and blood, seekers and followers along this path of Jesus Christ, both in this sanctuary and in every sanctuary. The faith community scriptures would not exist if it weren't for the fact that God calls us out. Calls out our name and then says, I have a job for you that only you can do. We read it of God's call to Adam and Eve in the garden. We hear it in God's call to Abraham and Sarah, and that is a message that this congregation must hold on to. How old was Abraham when he was called? As old as Clint. How old was Sarah when she started to have children? Whoa. So let this be a warning to you, that the call always goes out for us to do something, not that we would choose, but God wants to work in our lives. They didn't sign up for this without God calling them first. And so God calls to Samuel and to Esther, Isaiah and Jeremiah, to all the people collectively known in that word Israel. God calls to the disciples, to Paul, and yes, to even you and me. The truth is that we are not the ones who find God. It is God who seeks us, finds us, and calls us by name, and takes our name in the waters of baptism for that particular ministry to which we're called. We don't choose God. God has already chosen us and called us. As the writer of 1 John wrote, we don't love God. It was God who loved us first that allows us to love God and one another. Well, there probably isn't a better place to start about talking about being called than the story of the Magi, who do eventually find themselves at the home of Mary and Joseph and the baby. I think this is how we're understanding, and this is how we are to understand what it means to live a called life, metaphorically, through what we hear in the dynamics of this story. So we begin where it begins. The Magi are not the ones who found the star. It is the star that found the Magi. Yes, they were looking, but God was the one that shone in the midst of their darkness, and they paid attention. Somehow with stars, or with babies, or lovers, of grief, or exhaustion, or even suffering, God grabs our attention, our amazement, and our delight. God is always up to something in this world. God is always up to something in our hearts and our minds. Secondly, the light doesn't follow them. They have to get up and follow the light. Being called means that you're also sent. You can't get there by sitting where we are. Once called, you have to move. Not literally, but maybe. But move somewhere in heart and mind and hands and feet, as we did in the prayer exercise, of somewhere of ministry into this world. We have to let go of our prior agendas and assumptions and go where God's light leads us. Being called means we have to avoid distractions and detractors. At the same time, we're called to trust our wisdom and knowledge and discernment and our preparation, for it's going to take us some time to follow that star. We think in terms today of right now or earlier for what we want in the world. Amazon only has it down to 2 days, but then you know they're getting those little helicopters that are going to get it to our house right away. Soon. We want everything right now, but we have to prepare for the long journey. If you look at where Persia is and where Bethlehem is, we're talking about days and hundreds of miles. And you have to prepare for the journey that you're about to take. That's why I try to keep us alive with the thought that Christmas is a season of 12 days. And we're only at the 11th day. We have at least 1 more day's journey to go. Being called means that sometimes we'll feel lost. Or actually, we will become lost. Now, they couldn't have been that wise if they had to go stop for directions in Jerusalem. I mean, they got that close and they missed it. And they had to get advice from somebody else. And that ought to be a warning to us too, because God's voice can speak to us through the strangest people. Herod is the one that ends up getting them the information they need so they can get to go where they need to be. So you have to listen to everyone's ideas, because our wisdom sometimes is limited and our knowledge even more so. Somebody will speak God's word and get us back on track. Next, being called means that we to get there, we will eventually get where we're going. And we do have to remember that both life and faith are a journey, not a destination. But God does not lead us to those places but God does lead us to those places where holiness and intimacy meet. In the spiritual language, we call that the thin places, where there seems to be no gap between heaven and earth. The Magi do get to Bethlehem. They do find the child who they've been longing for. And of course, we know from this text that being called means offering our best gifts, offering all that we have out of the rich stores of our treasures. Notice the text didn't say that the Magi stopped at the dollar store because they knew they would have to make some kind of offering. They were traveling with all of their goodies with them, and what do? They draw from them the most expensive, the most significant, the most elegant: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They gave their best. They gave out of joy, and not leftovers simply out of fear or a sense of mere obligation. Being called means we're going to be changed. It's obvious that the Magi were changed people. They were warned in the dream of Herod's deception. And so they decide they better go home by a different route. And so we leave this sanctuary hopefully to go home by a different route as well. Changed people. The Magi had to disobey the authority, the law of the empire, and decided that they would follow the authority of God. Yes, we're called to live as changed people. God shows up, and God shows us different paths to follow, teaches us deeper and different values, like compassion and grace and mercy, a different narrative about the world, about how we are to love one another, even to love our enemies. Being called means gaining an open heart and mind to God's wisdom and truth and love that is known to us in Emmanuel. Even the Magi get it. Being called is not only, though, about following the star, it's about becoming the star, reflecting the star's light, becoming light ourselves, and this is what we call ministry. Or, as we call it also in our tradition, the priesthood of all believers. For the drawing in of others that might have been excluded and are not welcomed yet in the church to be welcomed, to be invited, to be a part of this alternative community in the world. Yes, Matthew is saying the Magi get in. That means that everybody gets in to be the church. We are to let our light so shine before all others that they may see in us something that is different, something of an invitation, something that magnifies the grace of our God. So the question is this morning, as those who are called, is how are we fulfilling our ministry? How is our ministry reflecting the light of Christ in these days? Well, a few years ago, the Constitution of the Presbyterian Church USA was amended. We always listed what we considered were some of the roles and responsibilities and privileges of being, quote, a living member of the body of Christ. Well, a couple years ago, we added an additional one. And that says that each year, at least, maybe more often, we should all step back a bit and look what it means to be called. What is the ministry I am to be about if I don't have a sense of that yet? And so you'll find in the bulletin this morning an insert. It looks like this. It's got the 4 C's on it and a chart. And these are the 10 points of wisdom that the church shares with us for framing our ministry. Things that we should be engaged in some degree or not. And so we're going to take some time. Everybody has a pen, or is given a pen, or needs a pen. The ushers will make sure you have one. Everybody have something to write with? Tim needs a pen. I need 2 pens, usher. And what you're going to do is you're going to read one and meditate upon it, and then you're going to give yourself a grade. Now, don't be too hard, but don't be too easy on yourself. And if you need help, success, ask one of your neighbors, how am I doing about this? And maybe they can help you out. But also, stretch it to say that what is one way that I can increase or make more meaningful my witness as the light of Christ in the world? So take some time, work through this, and we'll gather after we've had some time to complete the grid.
Sign your name.
How do we grade it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 8?
You can do it 1 through 10. You can give yourselves A, B, C, D, F, or incomplete. You can add minuses or pluses if you don't like me. Somebody would go and say, well, I'm not A plus on everything. I'm minus. So come up with your own evaluation tool about use of yourself. bell now. If you haven't finished, please, there's always time afterwards. One of the other things would be to do, to really take the next step, would we find somebody and talk to them about this, and you don't have to maybe share your grades. Is that everybody an honor student here? By the way, this is a school from which you never graduate, so don't try to think you're going to get to the grade point average that you graduate. Church is forever, for life. You know. But anyhow, it would be a real level of accountability if you share this with somebody else, particularly those promises or these resolutions that you've resolved to complete and grow and increase in your faithfulness. So if I was to ask you right now, who are you, what would you say to me?
Called tradition by God for community commitment.
If I was to ask the rest of you who you are,
I'm going to follow Clara.
who are you?
I'm called church.
You're right. The answer, the shorthand number is on the church. But yeah, you're right. I'm called and commissioned by God for community and community. All right. May it be so. Amen. Let's stand now, and if we are able, stand. Let us